Welcome back to part 2. Hope you're feeling refreshed after your break. Now, this second part is a bit content heavy, so apologies in advance if there are a lot of terms that might not be familiar with. So it's probably a good idea if you have the glossary ready, right, for some of this terminology. And it's kind of a wide area, and it's can be a little bit, what's the word, nebulous, because sometimes it can be difficult to see what are the links between the ideas and the concepts. We're going to be talking a lot about things like differentiation, example. So let's start, shall we? Does anyone know what differentiation is? What is it and why is it important? And we're talking about mixed ability and learner differences. So, any idea what differentiation is and why is it important?
Is related with the way the learner learn. For example, if they are visual or maybe kinesthetic, maybe auditive.
Yeah, yeah. So it's related to the way that learners learn in different ways.
Yes.
Huh? Yeah. Any other ideas about why is it important though?
Maybe
know.
so. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Rosa.
Maybe to know that you don't have like the same type of students in all your students.
Yeah.
All of them are different.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes I think some teachers who are not very well trained, they just say, well, they're all the same age and they're all the level, so they must be kind of the same, right? Yeah. So some people associate expressions like meeting, learning where it is. Some people talk about different personalities. Different pace of learning. Culture. Mother tongue. All as having an effect on this. But the idea of differentiation is it's all about identifying and addressing the different needs and interests and abilities of all learners to give them the best chance of achieving their learning goals. Now, this is from the UK's Ministry of Education 20 years ago, but I still think it's valid definition. We could also see it as helping all students to make progress regardless of their starting points. It includes supporting the less confident and challenging the stronger students. Differentiation is the strategies, techniques, and activities that we use to support and scaffold. Have you heard of this word scaffold?
Yes, it's the thing that builders build before working on a, well, building.
That's right. It's in Spanish, it's called andamiaje, right? But is it a metaphor or is it real? Do we mean like literal scaffolding, like the metal structure, or is it
No,
are we
it's a
talking about language and tools? So it's metaphorical, right? But in practical terms, it's all about the language and support strategies that we use to help students. Okay. So let's move on. Let's now think about the different ways that learners, how they learn in a heterogeneous class, heterogeneous class, right? So how many ways do students differ and which are likely to affect the way you teach them? Can you think of some? Oops. Can you write some ideas in the chat? How many ways do learners differ? Into the chat box, please. We've mentioned some already, like culture, mother tongue, pace of learning, different personalities. Can you think of any more? Please write some ideas into the chat box. Ah. Yeah. Thanks, Tad. Yeah, energy levels. Yeah, their ability, proficiency, their personality, shyness, right? Yeah, like motivation. Yeah, their personality is going to make a difference, isn't it? Whether they're introverts, extroverts, mainly. Prior knowledge, yeah, like something about their learning background. It's a very relevant issue. Okay, so here are some more. I think we mentioned most of those. Yeah, Todd mentioned attitude. Well, the tongue is going to make a difference, right? If your mother tongue is Chinese or an Asian language, it's going to be it's going to take you longer to learn English probably because there are less commonalities between the languages than there would be between Spanish and English. Independence also, self-discipline. We've mentioned personality. Maybe gender might have something to do with it. Their interests. So their level of education. So all classes we could say are heterogeneous. None are homogeneous. And if they appear to be homogeneous, they probably aren't, right? Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about some of these little review of learning preferences, learner preferences. Can you help me to complete this crucigrama?
Yes, the first one across is visual.
Yeah. So this is a learner who finds it easier to learn when they see things written down or in a picture. This type of learner may like the teacher to write a new word on the board and not just say it aloud. What about one down? Rosa.
Auditory.
Yes, auditory, yes. Auditory, yeah. Rebecca, how about number 2?
The kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic, yes. So that's a learner who learns more easily by doing things physically. This type of learner may like to move around or move objects while learning. Yeah. Typically, younger learners might be associated with that, but we could imagine that some older learners too have a bit of a kinesthetic bias, especially if they're someone who's involved in sports. All right, now I'm going to stop sharing for a while here. Now I'm going to give you a quick questionnaire to do, just to break up the activities a little bit here. IHC, here we are. Coming into the chat now. Learner characteristics. Here we are. Enter the chart. I'll give you a few minutes to find out what is your preferred learning style if you're not sure. Answer VAK. Oh, sorry. No, you just got to read and decide which the answer that describes you best. Huh? I'll give you 3 minutes to do this. All right, let's check our answers. If your answers are mostly A, you're auditory. If your answers are mostly V, you're visual. If your answers are mostly K, you're kinesthetic. What about it? What about you, Tadeo?
I'm mostly A.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
everyone always thinks I'm going to be kinesthetic, but
I would have thought so, yeah, but interesting, yeah, that you're mostly A.
yeah, I'm very lazy, so I don't really like to move, but I like talking and listening.
Ah. What about you, Rosa? Can't hear you.
Most of them are B.
Most of them are B, so you're mostly visual. Christina?
I got 5 B, so I think I am visual too.
Rebecca?
Yes, me too. I got 5 Bs.
Interesting. Yeah. I wonder if that's changed in recent years because of the amount of screen time that we have. Yeah, well, it's like the default, isn't it, to look at a screen? Yeah. So maybe this bias towards visual learning sometimes obstructs students from accessing other channels of input. Yeah, so that perhaps we need to introduce different types of learning routes in the classroom. So, for example, doing a bit more kinesthetic sometimes, because sometimes yeah, kinesthetic activities can be useful for memory. Yeah, so as you're reciting a poem, for example, you could be moving or dancing to it. Yeah. That will help you to retain or memorize. Now, let's consider differences in age and experience. We need to consider what are some of the different learner characteristics of children, teenagers, and adults. And what effect can learners' past learning experiences have on learner characteristics? All right. So I'm going to put these questions into the chat. All right, there they go. I'd like you to save those questions. I'm going to put you into the breakout rooms with a different partner from last time. And I'm going to give you about 6 minutes to discuss what are the differences between children, teenagers, and adults. And what differences do past learning experiences have on their learner characteristics? Going into the breakout rooms now. Three minutes for each question, yeah?
Hello. Okay.
Hello.
Sorry to cut you short. Some of you were still in full flow, but it doesn't matter. Let's just see if any of these were mentioned by you. So, some of the different learner characteristics of children, teenagers, and adults. So, there may be differences between the length of time they can pay attention or concentrate, their ability to stay still, usually much less with children for much shorter time. Their ability to control their behavior is less, isn't it? For children. Their attitude to making mistakes. Do adults feel bad about making mistakes? Generally.
Yeah, I think they feel the worst out of all three of the
Yeah.
groups.
Yeah, they often it's like loss of face, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, they don't want to feel
Yeah,
dumb
they
or like
feel that
children.
they don't want to feel like children. Yeah. Whereas children, generally, they don't really care that much. They are obviously with teenagers, they don't want to be seen as making mistakes in front of their peers, but younger children generally don't bother too much about making mistakes. Likewise, with taking risks, the attitude to taking risks is generally kids take more risks than adults. So that can be an advantage with learning. Levels of self-consciousness. Who has the highest levels of self-consciousness, would you say? Children, teenagers, or adults?
Children.
No, I would say teenagers.
Really?
Yeah. What about you, Rosa? Would you agree with that? Teenagers are more self-conscious.
Mm, I don't know.
Well, think about it. They're often very conscious of how they look. And they don't want to make a fool of themselves in front of their peers. So I would say self-consciousness is usually higher with teenagers. They're very concerned about how their bodies are changing, for example, yeah, because they're going through puberty.
Ah, I thought you said confidence.
No, self-consciousness though.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Self-consciousness. And being able to bring life experiences to learning. Who is that? Is that children, teenagers, and adults?
Adults.
Yeah, that's like an advantage that adults have, right? They have more experiences to bring to their learning. Yeah. So from their past learning experiences, maybe they're good at taking notes, they're more organized. Yeah. Whereas children and teenagers, they need to be taught how to organize themselves, don't they? Now, what effect can learners' past learning experiences have on learner characteristics? So, the previous experience of learning may be very different to the approach taken by the current teacher. And this change may or may not be welcomed. Yeah, so sometimes learners resentir, don't they, a change in teacher. They resent it. Learners may have tried to learn a language before and failed. So possibly adults are in that category. whereas children are more open to the new experience. And learners may have fixed ideas about the best way of learning. Would you say that's more characteristic of children or teenagers or adults? Learners may have,
Adults.
yes, yeah, so that can be a problem with adults, can't it? They have sort of a bit cuadrado when it comes to the activities, yeah? Whereas children, they're more open-minded often. So that's an advantage of for children, teaching children. It can be more fun, can't it? All right, so now let's go back to the idea of differentiation and mixed ability, having talked about some, having gone into this diversion about different characteristics of the learners. Now, there's this myth that differentiation is all about individualized instruction, that it could be chaotic. That it's just another way of providing homogeneous grouping. It's all about tailoring the same suit of clothes. And it's just for learners who struggle. No, not necessarily. Nor is it about necessarily causing burnout by the teacher. It doesn't necessarily have to be. Doesn't have to create you a lot of work. Does it lead to death by worksheet? No, not necessarily. We'll see how we can adapt activities to deal with different levels of ability or interest or knowledge. So we don't have to plan separate activities for every student, because that would lead to death by worksheet, complete teacher burnout. So one of the ways we can do this is by creating open-ended tasks that have more than one acceptable answer, or that can be approached by more than one way of thinking. Okay, so here is a couple of tasks, and I'd like you to try them. I'm going to put the link into the chat now. So try activity A and then try activity B, and then we'll compare them. Please click on the link, confirm that you've received it. Thank you. All right, so some good answers there. Now, which do you think of these tasks is more open-ended? Is it activity A or is it activity B?
B.
Right. Why? Because, well, you can see that there's more than one acceptable answer. Right? So we could say that a good teacher comes to class on time. A good teacher makes the lessons interesting. A good teacher smiles. A good teacher explains well, establishes trust with the students. Whereas activity A, there's only one acceptable answer, isn't there? Right? And the answer is C, because it has to be the third person. Simple. So activity B does not have a single predetermined right answer, but a potentially unlimited number of acceptable responses. It is naturally differentiated or differentiation friendly. Going back to this PowerPoint. And a task is differentiation friendly when it's open. It provides choice in terms of challenge. It provides choices in terms of quantity. It allows for personalization or speaking from within. And it requires interaction with others. Now, activity A are by their very nature homogeneous. Right? They provide valuable learning for a limited range of learners. Those who have just about mastered the relevant language, they can rehearse it successfully given a cue like this. Learners who are at a lower level and have not yet mastered the language will either not respond at all or are quite likely to get the answer wrong. This type of activity, activity A, may be useful to clarify what they need to work on in the future, but they will have got no useful practice. The more advanced learners are also neglected. The item is easy and boring, provides them with no opportunity to show what they can do or engage with language of an appropriate level. So open-ended activities provide opportunities for response at various levels. You'll notice you can make up more sophisticated and longer examples, whereas the less advanced can listen to other learners' responses and use them as models before volunteering simpler ideas of their own, such as a good teacher smiles. So, differentiating by task means adapting more. We can give students broadly the same task. It's not completely different. But we can give different levels of challenge or support. So, can you help me to do this activity? Complete each sentence with the appropriate relative pronoun. What's A? What goes in A?
Who?
Oh, B?
That.
C?
That.
Yeah, that or which? Yeah. And the woman? Two again, right? Who arrived yesterday? No. How can we make it more challenging? Well, we can also give them the practice with the relative pronouns, but then we can get them to complete the sentences in their own way. Right? This is what we call personalization. So this allows us to differentiate, doesn't it? So we're dealing with different ability levels. Okay, so could you write some answers to just choose any one of these sentences, yeah, and write the answer into the chat. Just choose one. Yeah, I just like who walk too slow. Please write your answer into the chat. Any one of these. Uh-huh. Waiting for Rebecca and Lucy. Rosa submitted hers. So, Tadeo, tell us, why do you dislike people who walk too slow?
Well, that's because I usually move very fast. So when I'm on a tight street, I don't like walking behind people. So I start getting like very desesperated. And I
Uh-huh.
usually try to cross the street in order to get around them.
Uh-huh.
So,
Rebecca,
yeah.
what's your sentence? I dislike who are not kind to others. Yeah, just remember, we can use these as an opportunity to focus on the form as well. So Rosa just makes sure that after who, remember people is plural, so we need to make it with that, we remove the S. Yeah. I dislike people who talk very slow. Why, Lucy? Tell us.
Because my focus tends to, when they take a long time to speak, my focus just goes away. So I'm not longer paying attention.
Okay, good. All right, so guys, you can see that we've taken a very controlled activity here and we've made it more open, haven't we? Yeah, this is what we mean by open-ended. And that you can see that this type of activity, when we make it more open-ended, it's more amenable to differentiation. Yeah, we can deal with different levels of students' abilities here, right? Because I can get you to talk a little bit about what you wrote, making you justify and think critically even, right? So, but with the more closed activities, the more support you're giving, the more open you make it, where mistakes could be anything, the more challenging it is. Right? Now, we're also going to consider this as a very controlled activity. How could you make this a more open task? It's a very controlled activity on the face of it, isn't it, right? Driver drives a car, police car catches thieves. A doctor works in a hospital. Could you ask them to choose? They can make any link just as long as they can justify it, right? So could be that a farmer gives lessons. In what situation might a farmer give lessons? Well, people who are learning about farming, right? Could you also maybe just remove all of these and the students have to think about people who could do these jobs? Right? Or likewise, you could remove the second column and they have to say what these people usually do. That would make it more open. Okay. So these are largely controlled practice activities, aren't they? But we can also think about skills activities. So when reading, we can give students answers in a mixed order with a few distractors to give more support. We could make open questions, multiple choice true or false. So instead of WH questions, we can give multiple choice or true or false answers. So those are usually simpler to answer. For challenge, we could select 3 new items of vocabulary. Students look them up in their dictionaries and write them with definitions. That's before they do the reading. For the listening, for support, we can send the students the audio script on the second listening so they can check their answers. We could have a gap fill and provide some of the words needed. To provide challenge, when the students listen for the second time, to confirm the answers, give optional extra questions. And when asking answers, taking answers on a true or false activity, we could ask why or why not. Why was it false? Writing. We could give, to support, we can give a model example before they start writing. We can correct the draft. Helping with the students or working in pairs before rewriting. It's easy to do with Microsoft Word or any of these tools like Google Docs. Challenge, we can use a correction code to give them a chance to self-correct. We could challenge the students to use a variety of linkers in their writing. Speaking, for support, get students to rehearse. Then have them send you a recording of the rehearsal, give them audio feedback. You can elicit and practice the language they will be using before their speaking task. Challenge, get them to justify their opinions. Hire students together so they can really stretch themselves. All right, so there we're working at different ability levels. Working in groups and pairs. So group or pair work activities are likely to differentiate more effectively because students can work at their own level instead of the whole group, and students can support and learn from one another. Questioning techniques. Maybe you've not considered this. Have you heard of Bloom's taxonomy of thinking skills? Yeah. We can ask simpler questions. For example, describing or defining something is a lot easier to do than judging or critically appraising something. So we can ask different questions to different students based on their ability level. Developmental questions are more stretching and require deeper understanding. So teacher asks students to critically appraise a book that they've read. For example, that requires higher order thinking skills than simply describing the story. So with learners that are having difficulties, here are some possible strategies. For learners in the middle, and advanced learners, we often forget about them. So I get them to challenge themselves. Okay. So differentiation, in summary, it's not about accepting that some students can't do parts of the lesson. It's not about making lots of different worksheets. But when we're sitting down to plan, we need to be aware of different needs of students. So tasks at their own level, or adapt slightly so that there is challenge or support. Ah. Got a little handout for you. Share this. This is from the TKT exam, the young learners. Please click on the link there. So here are some young learner needs and characteristics. Young learners like to have routines in the classroom. They like to have personalized feedback on their language. They like to have opportunities to respond to and use language creatively. They like to have chance to have fun as a whole class. They like to have help with underlying language patterns. They like to have physical movement or activity, and they like to have enough time to complete their work. Right? So I'd like you to try to match these characteristics to these these teacher comments. Okay, give you 6 minutes. 5 minutes should be enough. Okay, when you're done, please post your answers into the chat. You've got about 30 seconds left. Please put your answers into the chat. All right. So Tad says that routines in the classroom is 4. Yeah, at the start of the lesson, 2 pupils gives out books and the other writes the date on the board. That's correct. D, chance to have fun as a whole class would be 3. Yeah. It's like learning a chant, say it faster and faster, but keeping in time. That would be fun, undoubtedly. He says C is number 5. Respond and use language creatively. Yeah, visualization. Exactly. It's quite a creative response, isn't it? They're giving their own personal response, drawing a picture. Number G, enough time to complete their work. 6. Yeah, fast finishers so that they don't get bored waiting for everyone else. Underlying language patterns, E is 2. Yeah, spelling system. It's a pattern, a system. So that would be correct. And F is number 1. Physical movement. Yes, something kinesthetic, right? Doing measurements, moving their arms, moving around the lab, the classroom. Definitely. Good job. Now, before we finish on mixed ability, I'd like us to have a look at some more exercises from our course book and try and explain how these exercises are different. So have a look at this. Try and explain how these 3 are different. All right. The topics are similar, aren't they? But the actual design is different. So how could we adapt the last one to be more open? That is, give students opportunities to be more creative and relevant to their lives. That is, personalize it. So redesign the task so it's more open-ended and personalized. So I'll share this with you. We'll do it together as a 3. Okay. So that we can all access it. Copy it into the link, post it into the link there. Let's try and explain how they're different first of all. Just try and do the activities. Doing the activities will help you to figure out how they're different. So what differences did you notice, guys? Between 1, 2, and 3?
That the last one, the number 3, allows for more personalization and multiple correct answers, while the first one is more strict and only has one right answer for each one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the first one you can kind of work out by like elimination, can't you? The second, well, it involves some linguistic some grammatical knowledge, doesn't it? Because you've got to know that you can change the irregular past, go into went, buy to bought, but there's also a regular knowledge of regular verbs. 3 is kind of semi-controlled in that you can put almost, well, you can almost put any verb in there, but you've got to be, it's going to make sense, coherent sense, hasn't it? It could be I cycled to the supermarket. But you couldn't say I made some bread, coffee, and pizzas. Right? So it's limited by the context. So number 3 is definitely more challenging, wouldn't you say? But now, can you have a go at redesigning this task so it's more open-ended and personalized? What would be a good way? I mean, we could do this orally. We don't have to do it if you don't want to writing. But what could be what could be a way of making it more personalized? Could you have a go at rewrite? How about Tad? You have a go at rewriting A. Rosa, you have a go at rewriting B, and Lucy C. So it's more open-ended for the students. So they could, there's more creativity involved. Try and keep the context, but like leave the students the opportunity of completing it. Lucy, are you there? Okay. Now, so Tad, you wrote A, and Rosa, you wrote B. Rosa, can you try and do A, complete A with your own ideas, and Tad, you complete B with your own ideas. See what, if there are any interesting answer. Went to the bookshop yesterday and bought some books. Yeah. But you can see from this that there's a much more creative, and it appeals to a wider range of students in ability levels. Good. Now, let's move on to writing tasks. I'd like you to redesign this task so it's more authentic. That is, as we would write in real life. So, more authentic, as in real life writing, and more intrinsically motivating for a group of primary school age learners. So, write five to 10 sentences about your favorite singer or musician. How could we make that more like real life and motivating? So having a try to redesign that, and then I'll show you some possible answers for that. But try and keep the topic, yeah? The topic is singer or musician. So it's about music. So would you write a story about music? Not really. Maybe write a review of a concert that you went to see. Ah, okay. That could be experience. Your first favorite song. Yeah. If you can remember them. Perhaps you could do some visualization before. What was it like when you first heard it? Okay. Well, time is kind of running out before break again. So here are some possible suggestions. Write a review of your favorite singer's new album for a blog post. Write an email to your friend convincing him or her to listen to your favorite band. Write a fan letter to your favorite musician. Write an opinion piece for the newspaper asking the city to sponsor a concert by your favorite singer. It's an interesting idea. Write an Instagram caption for a photo of the last concert you attended. Yeah. The last one doesn't require too much writing, does it? Yeah, so it could be quite simple. So there are various different challenges there for ages and levels of proficiency. Now, this is quite a common speaking task for young learners, a questionnaire or survey. In a questionnaire or survey, pupils interview other classmates about, for example, their abilities, their likes and dislikes, and record the information on a chart. Look at the worksheet below based on the Very Hungry Caterpillar story. What support would you give to weaker primary age students so they could do the survey task? Any ideas? We could do this orally. You don't have to write down the ideas. Okay. So someone's already written, give a script of possible answers to weaker students. So maybe you could help them to form the questions. And answers. So a question would be, do you like pizza? But they need to know how to answer, don't they? So yes, I do. No, I don't. And what extra challenge could you give to stronger students? Someone has asked them to elaborate on their answers. So, yeah, why do you like plums? That could be a question for stronger students, right? Why do you like plums? Well, because they're sweet. Right. That makes sense. Have you done surveys like this, Rosa? Encuestas with your students?
Yes, in the books that we use in the classroom, we
Yeah.
have in at the end of the units,
Yeah.
we have like this exercise.
Okay, great. Well, in the final part of today's session, we'll look at how to set up a survey like this, because for some students and some teachers, they find it difficult to get students working on this sort of thing, right? Because they're not used to doing more independent speaking activities. So for some teachers and some students, they can be difficult to get started. Okay, so we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to work on the final part of today's session, which is setting up activities. All right. So let's take our second break. When we return, setting up activities. So let's go and get some refreshment. Maybe I have a sandwich or something and return at 12:30.